This story starts with that classic setup where random gates just pop open for no reason, unleashing all sorts of nasty creatures on the world while humanity suffers some serious catastrophic damage. We usually see a select few chosen ones gaining superpowers to save the day, but that's not the case here. This time, the creator of the story decided to get a little creative. Our protagonist is the only person blessed with superpowers to take on these terrifying creatures wreaking havoc, and even he's not sure if this is how his story was supposed to unfold. Now that we've wrapped up the world building, let's rewind a bit and see how our hero ended up as a lone wolf in the first place. Meet Bullied, a second-year high school student at a totally ordinary school. He's just your average Joe, the kind of guy who spends his free time reading webtoons like it's a full-time job. As he strolls down the corridor, completely glued to his phone, Bullied accidentally bumps into a girl, or rather, her butt bumps into him. Whatever the case, he starts apologizing right away, but she just shoots him a cold glare and tells him to watch where he's going. She storms off in frustration, leaving Tane feeling oddly thrilled. It's like he's in a webtoon, experiencing the thrill of a one-sided crush. But just as he's daydreaming, a bully slaps him and yanks him back to reality. The bully leans in close to his ear, reminding him for the umpteenth time not to look at Joe Uni with those lustful eyes. This guy is your typical spoiled rich kid and bully. But what makes it worse for Tane is that his dad works at the same company as the bully's dad owns. Also, compared to the over-the-top bullies he's read about in webtoons, this guy feels like a cartoon version of a villain. As the typical bully orders Tane to run yet another errand, my guy can't help but snicker inwardly at how cliched and outdated this guy is. But no matter what's going on in his life, Tane always has his webtoons to immerse himself in, providing a sweet escape from reality. Just as he's zoning out, a massive crash sounds behind him. When he turns around, he's face to face with a terrifying monster, which is definitely not something you'd expect in the school hallway. The creature looks horrifying, but instead of freaking out, Tane feels a surge of excitement. He's sweating bullets out of thrill, and he can't shake the thought that this monster looks like one of those beasts from the beginning of a Gate Hunter series. You know, the kind that serves as a punching bag to show off how powerful the protagonist is. This guy is so lost in his fantasy that he starts imagining a supporting character swooping in to take down the monster for him. His mind is practically buzzing with dopamine, as he anticipates an SS rank hero to show up and beat this monster to a pulp. That's when Tane spots the rich bully on the ground, half-conscious. The monster quickly shifts its attention to the bully, and once again, Tane gets lost in his fantasy. He thinks this is one of those classic situations where he has to decide whether to save the guy who's been bullying him. Just as the monster charges at the bully, the dude ducks at the last second, and the monster's horn smashes into the wall instead. Suddenly, a system window pops up right in front of Tane's eyes, announcing that he has been chosen. This webtoon maniac is completely amazed by the sight of the system window, but he's not surprised at all. After binge-watching so many webtoons, he was kind of expecting something like this to happen. Meanwhile, the bully is frantically dodging around, trying to save himself from the monster. Tane shouts to him to hang in there a little longer, explaining that he just needs to check out his newly awakened system before he can help. A window pops up, saying something about how he can now train for 6,666 years in the Tower of the Otherworld. If he reaches the top successfully, he'll gain godlike powers and become humanity's savior. Meanwhile, Tane is grumbling about this long-ass text, because he is not in the mood to read all this nonsense. He quickly tells the system to cut to the chase before that bully gets screwed. In response, the system flashes a rephrased, concise version of the same message, asking him if he wants to grind his way for 66,666 years to get strong. It also mentions that if he accepts, he'll be granted one power of his choice to help him clear the tower. While the poor bully is literally crying himself to death, Tane is just casually pondering what kind of power he should choose. He asks the system if he can literally have anything, to which the system cheerfully agrees. The system tells him he can gain the power of a hero who saves the world, or he can go for some dark magic like a necromancer who creates his own legion. It even promises to grant him the most mysterious and powerful items in existence. Not gonna lie, the stick he's holding is actually a total mystery. How can we forget that this little piece of wood has even power to split continents like it's nothing? Anyway, the system even goes so far as to say that anything he can imagine is possible. But it also warns him about the Tower of Trials, as it won't be easy. The tower is located in the dimension of eternal night, has 66,666 floors, and he has 1 year to clear each floor. Once he starts climbing, the only way out is to reach the top or die, so he better be prepared. As he thinks it over, the monster in the background is doing its best to pummel the poor bully. Tane, meanwhile, is torn between choosing the most powerful item or the most powerful ability. Finally, our boy makes his decision and promptly hits the accept button. The system immediately asks what ability he wants. Tyene braces himself before confidently demanding a ticket for skipping the entire 66,666 years of the Tower trials. This news leaves the monster stunned, practically at a loss for words at such a ridiculous request. Even the system seems to sweat a little, asking what in the world he's talking about. But Tyene keeps it simple, pointing out that if he can wish anything he wants, then a skip ticket should be just fine. The system tells him to take a chill pill, reminding him that there has to be some limits. Otherwise, it would ruin the whole game. But Tyene is not having any of this nonsense. He starts shouting at the system, reminding it that he was supposed to wish for anything, so why this system, which is directly part of the world's setting, is backing away from its words. Eventually, the system gives in, and a shiny golden skip ticket materializes right before Tyene, which leaves him grinning from ear to ear at the sight. The system asks if he'd like to use the ticket, explaining that doing so will consider him someone who has cleared all 66,666 floors. Tyene doesn't waste a second and confirms without hesitation. A golden light flashes, leaving the bully and the oversized lizard wide-eyed in shock. The golden light keeps intensifying, spilling out of the school, and for a moment, the entire planet becomes the brightest star in the universe. Once the process wraps up, Tyene looks at himself, wondering if it actually worked. The system promptly congratulates him on completing the Tower of Trials and announces that he will receive his final rewards. First up, he gets an SSS rank superpower. Next, he receives a skill to match his newfound powers. And third, he's told that he has transcended the limits of humanity. All of his stats are maxed out, and he's now literally the one-punch man of this universe. After transcending to this godly level, Tyene finally snaps his attention back to the monster. Meanwhile, the bully can't help but notice that this ugly brat has somehow become even more handsome in the blink of an eye. My guy turns to the lizard and reminds it that your father is standing right there. The lizard cowers in fear, glancing back at the bully, who nervously tells it to attack Tyene. The lizard sweats bullets but eventually decides to lunge at our boy to save its pride as a terrifying monster. Tyene quickly extends his hand, and just like he's seen in the Webtoons, he decides to flick his finger after getting this immense power-up. As he does, a brilliant blue energy radiates from his fingertip, bursting through the school. The energy is so massive that it tears through space itself, leaving absolutely nothing of the lizard behind. Everything in its path is completely obliterated, leaving no trace of what once was. Even this Webtoon fanatic can't quite believe what's happening. Just then, the system bombards him with a flurry of notifications, listing all sorts of rewards and achievements for obliterating over 2 billion lives. But Tyene quickly decides to clean up the mess he's made. He uses one of his SSS rank skills, Temporal Rewind, commanding everything to be undone. Everything starts to rewind back, and the monster is standing right in front of him again, very much alive. The lizard is sweating bullets after literally dying and coming back to life, while Tyene just laughs it off, calling it crazy as he didn't expect that to actually work. He states that it was not his fault since it's his first time being a transcendent. The lizard, on the other hand, tries to make a quick escape, but Tyene zaps it with his flashy powers and asks him why it is crawling away without permission. After freezing the poor monster, the comic maniac starts to feel a little bad for killing it again. So, he decides to use one of his skills, Dimensional Exile, and tosses the lizard into the void. The bully literally falls to his knees after witnessing this godly display of power. He starts worshipping Tyene, calling him savior over and over again and begging for forgiveness for all the times he bullied him. Speaking of bullying, our boy suddenly remembers that this jerk had ordered him to run errands, and you can tell from the look on his face that he definitely wants to take revenge for that. The bully, on the other hand, realizes he's in deep trouble. He quickly begs for forgiveness again, insisting that he'll do all his own work from now on, and he just wants to be forgiven. Suddenly, Tyene begins to fly, declaring that he has something to do. Outside, the world has already been ravaged by monsters. When the bully sees the situation, he quickly grabs Tyene by the legs, begging him to save him. My guy simply tells the bully to hang on a second because he needs to save his mom and dad first, before thinking about saving a lowly swine like him. Of course, the bully is left speechless, especially since Tyene definitely has a point. He uses his teleportation skill and vanishes from the spot, leaving the bully behind as a tasty snack for the monsters. Meanwhile, back at home, his parents are enjoying some TV show. Just as they're having the time of their lives, an emergency broadcast suddenly blares through. The reporter urgently states that Seoul is under attack by strange creatures and urges citizens to evacuate quickly, warning them not to go outside under any circumstances. Both parents are shocked to hear this, and when they look outside, they see the entire city in absolute chaos, with those grotesque creatures roaming around. Their shock turns to fear when a monster spots them and charges toward them. The monster winds up its fist, ready to smash through the apartment building, but just in time, Tyene pops into the scene. With one of his new godly skills, He casually flings the monster into the air like it's a toy. Like any typical teenager, Tyan greets his parents, walking right through the window, and tells them to chill because it's just their son. At first, they're frozen in shock, but then they quickly shift into classic mom and dad mode. His father starts grilling him about skipping school, and his mother reminds him to take off his shoes before entering. Tyan snaps, like any sane person would, reminding them that there are literal bloody monsters outside. Still, he obediently takes off his shoes and casually slides them into a portal, all while telling his parents that their old Webtoon-obsessed son is gone. He's now humanity's chosen savior. His parents, still in disbelief, stare at him like he's lost his mind, wondering what kind of nonsense he's spouting. As Tyan prepares to cast another magic spell, he reflects on all those protagonists in the comics he's read, fighting against world-ending disasters. He's always wondered why they seem to forget about their parents amid all the chaos. It's always about getting stronger, saving the girls, or taking revenge. Tyan has one question nagging at him. Why don't they care about their parents at all? Since he is different, he quickly casts a spell over his parents, vowing that he won't be like those cliched protagonists. He'll protect his parents first and foremost. After chanting the spell over his parents, he makes sure to cast a defensive barrier and a bunch of other random protections over the building as well, ensuring it remains absolutely secure, no matter what happens. With his parents safe inside, he can finally focus on saving the rest of the world without a care in the world. After wishing his parents love, he vanishes, leaving them wishing him back. He reappears at the school, where we see that same bully asking if he's done saving his parents. Our boy says everything went smoothly, and the bully is relieved to hear this. But then, he gets hit with Tyan's deadly glare as my guy remembers the errand he was supposed to run. The bully asks if there's any room for forgiveness. But our guy makes it clear that as someone who was bullied by the school jocks, it's now his duty to teach them a lesson. He quickly activates one of his spells and recalls how this bully always made him bring burger buns. So he literally starts summoning a ton of bun packets that flood the area, warming the bully and making him feel like he's drowning in them. It seems like Tyan isn't having as much fun and comments that this revenge moment isn't all that impressive. The poor guy, on the other hand, asks what that's even supposed to mean and what he did to deserve this. Tyan then decides to add some backstory to make this revenge even more dramatic for the audience. Of course, the bully shouts again, asking what the heck that even means. And my guy snaps his fingers saying it's finally a flashback time. In the flashback, we see how Tyan was a constant punching bag for this ugly bastard who always laughed at him. He hasn't forgotten how this jerk burned his uniform right in front of him, or how he was forced to eat food that had been thrown into the toilet. Plus, he remembers how this bully always put a lock on his glasses. Back in the present, our guy asks the bully if he seriously doesn't remember the shady stuff he used to do. The bully panics, admitting he did order him to buy some bread, but insists the rest of what Tyan said was made up. Plus, he points out that Tyan doesn't even wear glasses. My guy just gives him a deadpan look, asking if he's accusing him of lying. Eventually, he decides to cut this dude some slack and forgives him. But as a token of their new friendship, he tells the bully he'll turn him into something he likes the most. The bully's eyes light up as he imagines getting jacked. But contrary to his expectations, Tyan turns him into a literal burger. While the poor burger wells up with tears, our boy laughs at his miserable condition and tells him that if he sincerely reflects on his past, he'll turn back to normal. The burger starts chirping quickly, insisting he is sincerely reflecting. That's when the girl from before joins the scene and asks him what the hell is he doing here. Tyan turns around, shrugs, and says he's just been chosen by the gods. The burger begins to speak again, and the girl gets scared seeing a talking burger, while Tyan just laughs it off. She then asks if he's not feeling scared, especially since their whole world has descended into chaos. With so many people dead and no one left at the school, she can't even ask the police for help, so she has no clue how he can be so carefree. Her response surprises this maniac, and he quickly asks her if she doesn't read webtoons. He tries to reason with her, saying they're supposed to be having fun, and overthinking stuff ruins everything. He reminds her that the reason they're the only ones here is that the writer got lazy or hit a creative block. Well, all this nonsense just goes over the girl's head, and the boy starts thinking about how she's lacking so much for someone who's supposed to be the heroine of the story. Frustrated and not wanting to ruin his perfect narrative, he decides to summon a heroine of his own. After some big chant, he attempts to summon the most beautiful, charming woman from across all dimensions. Once the blinding light fades, they see a girl with a dagger covered in some blood. There's no denying she's beautiful, but he wasn't expecting her to be a main character from some webtoon he's read. He recalls that she's from some romance comic, and it literally freaks him out because he didn't want a heroine from a random genre that doesn't fit his story at all. He quickly shouts her name, asking if she's Layla. The girl begins to speak in response, and, true to its nature, flowers and all that nonsense appear in the panels. He quickly interrupts her, telling her to cut the dramatic bullshit since he hates all the decorative speech bubbles, flowers, and sparkles. The woman gets angry and asks how dare he speak so rudely to her. He quickly tries to tell her to put the knife down, but then she gets sad and asks where she is and why he's dressed like that. She explains that just a moment ago she was stabbing her husband with this dagger. First things first, our guy quickly takes the dagger from her, and then proceeds to clean the dirt and blood off her clothes. Her original vibrant beauty pops out, leaving the other girl in awe. Even this dude, now a burger, is literally thinking of clapping her. Anyway, she asks our boy who he even is. But instead of responding to her query, he replies that something is coming. Using one of his flying skills, he prepares for action just as a giant monster strikes the building. Thankfully, the monster fails to penetrate the defensive barrier, but it starts beating the hell out of it, and it's no use. Our guy flashes a creepy grin as he watches this dumb orc struggle for no reason. Then, he flies toward the monster, balls up his fist, and only allows the system to unleash a fraction of its power. Even that little fraction delivers a blow so massive that it surrounds the entire area with purple energy. Both girls are left in awe, wondering if this guy is for real. He just shrugs and says he hasn't even started yet. With that, he unleashes his freezing power on the giant monsters, and once they're frozen, he simply kicks them, sending their bodies flying. After scattering the monsters, he reflects on how even though he held back his powers, he's still completely overpowered. But he's not complaining. As long as he's having some fun, it's all good. The system flashes a notification. An achievement has been unlocked. First monster defeated. But soon after, more of these monsters lunge at him, and this maniac just grins ear to ear at the sight of this fodder charging at him. He flies into the air, activates his pointy poisonous blades, and slices through those monsters like salad in an instant. But even after clearing them out, more keep popping out of that giant gate. He reflects on how, in Webtoons, the main character usually has to enter each one and clear it out. But why bother? My guy simply uses his Dimension Exile skill, letting those creatures sink into his other dimension along with the gate they're spilling out of. With that, he clears out an entire gate in one swoop, saving the whole city in the process. When he gets back into the school corridor, he sees both ladies talking to each other. They snap their attention toward him, and Layla says she's figured out that she's not from this world, but apparently has time-traveled here. But the boy says that's not entirely true. He decides to give her a makeover to help her fit into this world. He explains that if she keeps wearing her traditional outfit with all those intricate designs, his illustrators are going to have a hard time drawing her. In a flash, he transforms her clothes, and now she's in a sports hoodie and shorts. Of course, this bold dressing leaves her yelling in embarrassment, while Jo Uni gives him a side-eye, saying she has started to detest him more now that she realizes his creepy taste in clothing. Tyne quickly tells her she doesn't have to be that aggressive now that they're friends, but he does acknowledge that her outfit is out of season. So, he quickly gives her full pants right away to complete the look. He then turns to Jo Uni, asking if she'd like a makeover as well. He even offers her something as branded as Chanel or Louis Vuitton. We can see those two brand logos practically hovering in her eyes, and I can't help but to think how she is just a gold digger after all. That is when Layla chimes in with a concern of her own, stating that since she's killed her husband, she's now Layla Klesuach, not Layla Liberhan. As she speaks, those same dramatic flowery panels pop up, and flowers start floating all around the area. She expresses her remorse and regret, saying she isn't worthy of the Klesuach name because she's killed her own husband, the Crown Prince. But before she can yap anymore, our guy cuts her off, telling her he doesn't give a damn about her backstory and has no interest in it. However, he can tell she's lived a wretched and tragic life. Layla's heart breaks as she sees this maniac dismissing her feelings like that. He continues, saying he doesn't even know the details, but he can tell she's terminally ill. Both ladies are shocked by how this guy has such godly insight. He doesn't stop there. He goes on to narrate that she probably had an arranged marriage with someone she didn't love, and her husband took a mistress, flaunting their relationship in front of her. He adds that she was falsely accused and branded as a villainess, leading to the accidental killing of her husband. The lady cries, admitting that this is all literally true. He reassures her that even though she's had it tough, she doesn't have to live like that here. Still, she weeps, feeling full of remorse for having killed her husband with her own hands. He then bestows her with one of his skills, and the lady starts feeling a strange warmth inside her. He reveals that he has healed all her illnesses, and now she can live freely and carefully in this world. The word freedom strikes her hard, and she begins to flash back to how not even her father, her friends, or even her husband ever gave her that. All she wanted was to be free like a bird. Yet here's this guy, whom she literally just met 30 minutes ago, offering her freedom as a gift. Now that he has already rescued a beauty from distress, he decides to get back to his mission of saving the world. Looking at the system, he sees that he has slain 33 monsters, and the system gives him props for this milestone. He just shrugs, saying it's nothing because his story has only just begun. The system then states that the constellations are intrigued by their achievements. It reveals to him that by satisfying these constellations, he can receive sponsorships, unique abilities, and item upgrades. A plethora of notifications surrounds him, showing that a bunch of constellations are interested in him. But by the look on his face, it's clear he's not really interested in any of them. He simply blocks all of them out. The system starts to fret, asking why he would refuse such a good opportunity. Tyne simply replies that he's not a big fan of constellation stuff. After dismissing the system, he turns to his newly acquired friends and asks if they'd like to save the world with him. The scene then transitions to a dimensional intersection at the Celestial Council, where we see all these celestial beings observing Earth. One of them, Huja Karuna, the constellation of Wrath, angrily states how dare a mere human reject the interest of the constellations. Another, Omoshiroi, the constellation of Gems, just snickers and tells his friend to calm down. The yellow guy, Oishiku Nare, the constellation of Cuisine, chimes in, saying it's time to teach him a little lesson. That's when the big cheese himself, the constellation king Seikai, speaks up, telling everyone to calm the hell down. He assures everyone that even though he's just a human, he has ascended the Tower of Trials, so they better address him with respect. Murimu Rimuri, the constellation of Despair, refuses to believe it, scoffing that this brat is just a lowly human. The constellation of Jealousy also reveals the rumors that this brat somehow skipped the Tower of Trials in one go. That is when one of the constellations decides to pay a visit to our boy and states that he will talk to him. If he sees that our boy has the potential to disrupt the universe's order, then he promises to eliminate him without hesitation. Meanwhile, we're back with our boy, assuring his friends that now that he has shared his powers with them, they can go ahead and take down the monsters too. Even though Jo Uni is holding a fancy wand, she still looks terrified. She asks what kind of nonsense this is, and why they have to fight these monsters themselves. And let's not forget about the burger, bobbing up and down while freaking out. He happily explains to them that since they're companions of the protagonist, they're protected by thick plot armor, meaning they have zero chance of dying. Jo Uni asks him if he's that powerful. Why doesn't he just handle everything alone? He cuts her off, telling her to stop spouting common sense. He explains that even though he's the protagonist, if he handles everything by himself, there won't be any fun in that. As he says this, a giant monster heads his way, but our guy obliterates it with a single punch, stating that the stronger the main character is, the more interesting the side characters' stories have to be. Meanwhile, the girl has no clue what this maniac is talking about, or how he can be so out of touch with reality. Leilila agrees nonetheless, saying she'll contribute and take down the monsters to save the world. She starts to exude a thick killing intent, claiming that since she's already killed her husband, she feels like she could kill anything now. With that, she twirls around toward the monster, charges her dagger, and with a single swing, she literally cuts that stone monster into thousands of bite-sized pieces. After doing this, she's absolutely thrilled to finally have a taste of true freedom, and she looks completely maniacal. Our equally maniac hero narrates that to make this story engaging, he is putting up a party of maniacs, and their roles will be based on their personality, which is a dagger assassin in Leila's case. Jo Uni cowers in fear, wondering what the hell is wrong with this lady. Our boy just gives her a thumbs up, saying he's got her character perfectly nailed down. Meanwhile, Leila thinks aloud that this is the first time she has ever felt this much good about herself. But suddenly, another monster lunges at her, quickly immobilizing her with its tentacles. The pervert burger is bobbing up and down, fully riled up and anxious to see the princess in danger. It then quickly gathers its nerves and rushes toward the monster, shimmering with a golden energy. Once fully charged, it launches itself at the monster, only for its hit to do absolutely nothing. Turns out, our maniac of an MC gave this guy the role of a mere mascot, and seeing this trashy bun fail makes him crack up in tears. The burger gets annoyed and demands something cool as well. Meanwhile, Leila thanks the burger for distracting the monster, and it quickly calms down, basking in the spotlight of her compliment. Tyne, on the other hand, just flicks his finger, slicing down the overgrown tentacle monster effortlessly. Now, he eagerly looks to Jo Uni, waiting for her to showcase her character to the audience herself. The girl trembles in fear as our boy keeps insisting she showcase her abilities. She flatly refuses, eyes welling up with tears, and reminds him that he's super strong, can turn back time, and was chosen by the gods. She pleads, asking if he can't just rewind to before the world went to chaos, before everything was destroyed and people were dying. She wonders aloud if this is really the kind of fun he wants. But of course my guy sticks to his guns, saying she'll understand someday as well. In this world, fun is the most important thing. He directs her attention to the mutated eagle swooping down at her, advising her to use magic to handle it. But instead of casting some fancy spell or pulling off an epic incantation, she just swings her wand and delivers a solid smack to the monster. Our boy is left completely stunned as he realizes her character isn't actually a mage, but a brute type, a strength warrior in his story. The pervy burger compliments her, saying she totally had a baseball stance moment, while our boy freaks out, wondering if she's not the delicate lady he thought she was. Suddenly he notices someone sneaking up on him. He quickly blocks a purplish energy attack that came from behind. Once the energy fades, he realizes this wasn't the work of the monsters. That's when we spot a guy talking, a man who appears to be the heavenly demon in our boy's story. It doesn't take long for Tien to recognize who this person actually is. The heavenly demon, on the other hand, points out that he wasn't expecting to meet an unknown master in East Dongbang. My guy starts going absolutely wild with happiness to finally see a heavenly demon in the flesh. The demon lord feels quite surprised to realize that this dude actually knows him. Jo Uni turns to him and asks if he knows this clown. That's when Tien tells her to just type heavenly demon in the Webtoon search bar, because this man is an iconic character from the martial arts genre and always portrayed as the strongest villain in the universe. The demon then tells our boy to stop yapping and demands to know if the strong energy that shot from the east was his doing. Tien thinks for a moment and remembers that the demon must be talking about that earlier incident when he flicked his finger. Eventually, he admits it was him and curiously asks why he wants to know. The heavenly demon explains that for hundreds of years, the martial arts world has been in decline, and humans have become weak, content with their peaceful lives. He starts his flashback, revealing that even he was losing interest in his peaceful world. But then, it felt like the heavens and earth were splitting open, and monsters began to appear. He started beating the crap out of those monsters, relishing the chaos after so long. Just as he was about to fully embrace it, a tremendous energy suddenly swept in from the east. He managed to survive that energy beam using his ultimate arts, the heavenly demon's armor. The destructive power of that beam was jaw-dropping, but it didn't stop there. He witnessed everything reversing to its initial state, an absolutely incomprehensible phenomenon that he believed could only be the work of a true master. His intuition kicked in, and he traveled across the continent and sea using flash step and water walking, finally arriving here himself. While our guy is absolutely thrilled to hear the flashback, Jo finds it unbelievable that he ran across the continent from China. But what's really making her lose her brain cells is how on earth a Chinese guy is speaking Korean so well. My guy quickly yells at her to stop asking sensible questions. The demon finally gets serious, preparing to take down this nameless master of the eastern lands. Instead of feeling terrified, Tien, being the Webtoon fanatic he is actually hyped about getting threatened by a heavenly demon himself. The demon then readies himself to strike, while the ladies standing on the sidelines quietly warn him that he's going to regret this. But this arrogant guy does not know when to quit. After gathering enough energy in his palm, he unleashes a gigantic purple dragon made purely of destructive energy. But Tien just pops up right behind the Demon King and teases him for being too slow. The Demon King is shocked to see this, while this idiot points out how he's always wanted to get behind his opponent only to lower his voice to say too slow. He also can't get over how cool the move the heavenly demon just used was. He's always wanted to say something epic like that before throwing a purple dragon at his opponent. Meanwhile, the man in question is feeling pretty humiliated that our boy isn't even taking him seriously. He is seriously fed up with this lunatic's weird behavior, and finally declares he's lost interest and thinks hunting monsters sounds way more fun. The pervy burger then points out how this pussy is running away because his attacks didn't work. As he strolls off, he tosses more insults, claiming this weird country with its strange name has no future, especially with a brat like our boy running around. That's when Tien has had enough. He puts his hand on the guy's shoulder, reminding him he's crossed a line. With a deadly glare, he lets him know that Korea is definitely not a weird country. The demon lord quickly dashes away to put some distance between them, literally freaking out that he didn't even notice when our guy tapped him on the shoulder. He throws a bunch of rocks at Tien, but our boy just stands there like a cool cucumber, taking all those hits like a champ. Then, the demon lord uses his celestial demon manipulation to make those rocks explode, sending shockwaves that start pushing the ladies back. He's sure that with a martial art capable of crushing space itself, this brat doesn't stand a chance. Or at least, that's what he thinks, until Tien casually flicks the rocks off like they're nothing. His otaku side kicks in once again, and wishes if only he could be as cool as a heavenly demon. That's when he extends his hand, inviting the demon to join him as a companion. The poor demon feels utterly humiliated to see that his meticulously perfected martial arts over the last few hundred years amount to nothing but hot air against this brat. Devastated, he unleashes another torrent of power, proclaiming he's the greatest man in the world, the celestial demon, and there's no way he could lose to a rookie like our boy. But when Tien hears this grand title, he quickly activates one of his skills and casts it on the heavenly demon. Suddenly, the demon's voice turns feminine, and surprisingly enough, he transforms into a woman. Both ladies are absolutely in shock at this ridiculousness, while Tyne just smirks and says that from now on, he's no longer the greatest man, but rather the greatest woman, with the greatest hooters. Both ladies call him a pervert. But that's when this man of culture reveals that in webcomics, changing the gender of an attractive character to create fresh fun is a creative element with a long history. But for some reason, it's become a rare theme these days. The girl tries to argue based on binary gender stereotypes, but Tyne quickly rushes at her, telling her to shut her mouth because he does not want any dialogue to be longer than 3 lines. The demon lady, on the other hand, starts throwing a barrage of punches known as the Celestial Demon Fist Wind, but Tyne just gives her a single bonk on the head. He scolds her, reminding her that it's been a while since she got hit because she's always on top. If she keeps acting up, he's going to smack her again. Both ladies go pale and anxious at the sight of him hitting a woman, but our guy is just thrilled that his harem is expanding, and he's just recruited another party member. The demon lady feels sad and dejected, asking if he can't just send her back. That's when they discover her new role as a warlock monk. Tyne then tells everyone to get to know each other and hunt some monsters around here. With that, he activates his teleporting skill. When Joe asks him where he's going, he simply says he's off to save the world. The 3 ladies then point their fingers at each other in a truly Spider-Verse moment, all asking him how he can just leave them here with one another. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., at the White House Presidential Emergency Operations Center, chaos reigns supreme. Everyone's in a frenzy, and they're pretty sure humanity is doomed at this rate. They all turn to the president, urging him to make a quick decision. But the president looks unsure about whether to actually use tactical nuclear weapons on their own territory. That's when the Secretary of Defense expresses his deep sorrow, revealing that all their weapons, whether conventional or mechanical, won't cut it. Even if they fully mobilize their mechanical and biological weapons, they can't stop the sheer numbers of these monsters as long as that gate is open. The president slams the table in frustration, wishing aloud if only there were a way to hit those damned gates with nukes. Just then, out of nowhere, our boy pops into the scene, casually greeting the president as if he's his long-lost brother from another mother. My guy does not hold back as he happily introduces himself as a 17-year-old pervert from Korea and the savior of the world. A stunned silence descends as everyone in the room has no clue who the heck this dude even is. Naturally, everyone points their guns at him, but he just tells them to simmer down and listen to him first. But the bald Agent 47 steps forward and says he's gonna blow our boy's head if he doesn't put his hands behind his head. The secretary panics, insisting that this brat just popped out of thin air and is definitely a monster. He quickly tells the bald guy to shoot, but the president yells for him to wait. Despite that, the agents fire their bullets anyway. Not surprisingly, my guy stops all the bullets in midair, just like Neo from The Matrix. The maniac is absolutely thrilled and proud of himself after pulling off one of the most iconic scenes ever. He turns to the president and asks if this much is enough to prove he's a trustworthy guy. With that in mind, he boldly tells them to launch all the nuclear weapons they have. But the president immediately refuses, saying it's not that simple. Tyne knows that he won't be going anywhere with talks, so he pulls out one of the skills, mass manipulation, and starts messing with their heads. Suddenly, the president casually grabs the phone receiver and instructs the caller that by presidential decree, he's ordering the NSA and each unit to activate the Neo Doomsday Protocol and launch all tactical nuclear weapons immediately. The guys sitting inside the submarine share anxious glances and eventually launch their weapons. Today is the day when a staggering number of warheads, approximately 7,800, are fired off simultaneously. After that, our boy uses another skill, and a bunch of invisible hands pop up, quickly grabbing every missile. He then commands his hands to shove all those missiles straight into the gates. Honestly, this whole scene feels like a bizarre crossover episode where X-Men meets The Matrix, and let's be real, who wouldn't want to see that kind of destruction happen? Not sure about you, but my guy is enjoying it thoroughly. Meanwhile, in Moscow at the Kremlin Palace, we find Vladimir Putin and his military generals in a tense council meeting. While Putin remains calm, everyone else is freaking out about the US launching all their nuclear warheads. One of the generals suggests they respond quickly and launch their own nukes. Suddenly, our boy pops into the scene, and this time, the Russian soldiers don't wait for permission. They start bombarding him with bullets. But once again, he stops them. This time, though, he doesn't look as thrilled as before. But the soldiers are just as shocked as previously. Back in the US, the secretary is staring at the laptop in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that all the gates have vanished. That's when our boy suddenly appears again, casually stating he managed to save the world quite nicely. He thanks them for trusting him and willingly launching those nuclear weapons. Of course, the president has absolutely no clue when he even agreed to that. But our guy is all smiles as he delivers the good news. The nuclear weapons exploded inside the gates, likely taking them out along with the gates without affecting reality. All the soldiers burst into cheers, hailing this Korean hero who just saved their bacon. He explains that while the gates are gone, there are still monsters outside to deal with. With a thumbs up, he teleports out of the place, leaving them to figure out how to handle the remaining monsters on their own. We finally cut back to our ladies, who are also taking down monsters left and right. Just at that moment, our boy pops up into the scene and casually asks if they are finally having fun together. The demon lady gives him a cold stare, while the widow lights up at his presence. Joe, on the other hand, is freaking out as usual, wand in hand, complaining about how they were almost dead. The burger mascot also explains that earlier, some missiles zoomed into the gate, and then, boom, it just disappeared. He asks our boy if that was his doing. Tyne grins and agrees, commenting how this burger is functioning well in the party. He then thinks it would be nice to have someone to play the tank role in the party. Right at that moment, a green light strikes the ground behind him, and when we take a closer look, it's clear that this is one of those constellations from that celestial council. The first thing she says is that he's been causing quite a ruckus lately, shaking the universe. So, in the name of justice, she, Eudolina, is here to judge him. While everyone is left with their mouths open, trying to figure out who this new lunatic is, our guy just grins ear to ear, seeing her as the tank for his party. The lady demon feels absolutely turned on by the sheer amount of power coursing through her, and she is itching to duke it out with this newcomer. But our boy quickly tells her to stay still and calls out to his system, asking what he said to the holy seats. The system reminds him that he's the one who showed disinterest in the holy seats and blocked them himself. That's when he recalls that moment when he blocked them, and he starts buttering up the armored lady, saying there seems to be a misunderstanding. It's not that he dislikes the holy seats. He was just too busy dealing with the monsters invading Earth. But the lady makes it clear that this is actually the problem. Humanity has not been sacrificed enough because of his interventions. This revelation leaves him speechless for a moment. He asks her again if all those gates popping up and monsters killing innocent people are all the work of the holy seats. She confirms this without a shred of hesitation. I'm about to drop a lore bomb. If you don't want to hear it, then skip it until you see the burger bun explaining everything in 3 lines. You see, everything living in this universe exists to produce the energy the holy seats need for their survival, called negentropy. The holy seats created them like crops. The more intelligent and stronger the species, the more negentropy they can harvest from them. To make those beings stronger, they are supposed to go through trials. Some species overcome those trials and become stronger, providing more negentropy, while others go extinct, becoming material for the birth of a better species. But this time, our boy overcame the trial on his own, which means humanity lost the chance to grow as a whole. The holy seats wanted to observe humanity's progress, but since our boy intervened, there's been a lot of concern. So, she has come to personally pass judgment on him. Our guy calls all of this a bunch of bullcrap and starts shouting at her, asking how she can just drop an explanation like that. He's literally going bonkers over how, out of nowhere, everything has turned into some interstellar sci-fi mess, and he has no clue where the writer is going with this story. He quickly tells Burger Bun to summarize what she just explained in 3 lines. For those who skipped the explanation, here's the 3-line summary. The holy seats drain energy from humanity and opened the gates to cause chaos for that purpose. But since our boy interfered, they're pissed. My guy gets absolutely furious that they're complicating his perfectly good story. He even had to make the font small just to fit everything in the speech bubble. But he's fuming, and definitely not going to forgive these bastards for dragging his story into this mess. The widow quickly decides to help her master, but the demon lady stops her, telling her that they're out of their league right now and to let our boy handle this. Our Webtoon fanatic quickly uses one of his skills to create a sword made of void energy and jumps at the lady, unleashing a flurry of maelstrom blades. The Night Lady just easily blocks them off. Her unexpected skill catches him off guard, because the sword he was using can even erase the existence of the trajectory it cuts. But she was still able to dodge every attack. She glares at him, letting him know that he's no match for her. But our guy isn't one to give up. He quickly activates another skill known as Planet Buster. The single beam of golden light is so massive that it can be heard across neighboring universes. Even then, she comes out unharmed, literally not a single scratch on her. Looks like Tyne has started to struggle, so he quickly uses another skill known as multicasting, while claiming he's intentionally dragging this battle just to counterattack to give readers some well-deserved catharsis. The Night Lady just sighs, and before this lunatic lost in his fantasies can even move, he loses his hand, and he didn't even see her chop it off. She once again drills that same nonsensical line into his mind, telling him to accept his judgment peacefully. He screams out in pain and quickly tries to use his time reversal skill to bring his hand back. He reminds her that it doesn't matter how many times she attacks him, he'll just rewind time as many times as he needs. but his words get stuck in his throat when he sees that there's no effective time on her. As she moves toward him, she makes it clear that holy seats, as cosmic beings, are unaffected by space-time distortion. Since the demon lady has been rewound back in time, we see her in a moment when she feels the urge to fight this night lady after sensing immense power inside her. But our boy quickly tries to stop her, warning that this person is super strong. Tyene then thinks about what the author is even thinking by adding an overpowered character like this to the narrative. The lady tells him not to test her patience any longer and to just accept her judgment. Fed up with this judgment nonsense, he finally asks her what the hell that even means. She swiftly swings her hand, and a weight scale pops up, which our boy recognizes as the scale of justice. She tells him that these are the scales of justice, and instructs him to place a certain value on each side. The law of the universe will calculate them. Of course, the dude makes a long face again at her yapping and dragging his story down, so she decides to demonstrate instead of just talking. She puts some sort of energy balls on the scales and states that one represents the benefit of his existence to the order of the universe, while the other signifies the threat his existence brings. She asks him which side he finds heavier. But our guy, just as clueless as the rest of us, asks which side is which. Suddenly, the side with the red fireball starts to drag down, and she tells him to look. She explains that his existence is a great threat to the order of the universe, and the decisions of the scales of justice are basically the truth. According to that, she will suppress him at all costs. Meanwhile, by the look on his face, we can tell that he is thinking about something crazy once again. Right after that, a smirk spreads across his face. First of all, he addresses her by the wrong name, and then asks if those scales can judge any problems humanity faces, then can she solve one for him? The lady responds positively, though she states that from a cosmic perspective, humanity's issues are certainly trivial, and she also reminds him once again that her name is Yudo Renai. Then he asks her that before she goes, he wants her to solve humanity's one of the biggest dilemmas they are facing. The lady in response states that as the holy seat of justice, she cannot ignore such a request, so he is allowed to speak, and promptly asks him what value he wishes to weigh. The other girls get anxious, asking what the hell he's planning to do, to which he assures them not to worry, as this is going to be so much fun. Honestly, I'm not sure what's going on in this goofball's head or what kind of webtoon he just remembered, but when he thinks about this universal balance game, he can barely contain his excitement while imagining it. His face then goes absolutely crazy as he asks her to weigh which story is more fun, plus 99 reinforced wooden stick, or what am I doing alone? This question completely baffles this extracelestial creature who literally came from space, and has no clue what in the actual hell he is talking about. The other two ladies have the same response, and even our burger buddy shares the same clueless reaction.